past couple of days, I've been walking around campus just asking random people the question, what's the first thing that you think about when you hear the word Vietnam? And obviously, the most common answer I got was that people associate the word Vietnam with the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War was a 20-year period of extreme hostility and conflict. However, like other countries, I feel like Vietnam has much more significance to it. With its unique foods, its mountainous terrains, its people, there are lots of opportunities despite the size of the country. By the end of this presentation, you will have a better understanding of Vietnamese culture and how it compares to the United States. Despite Vietnam's unpleasant past, its culture is continuing to develop and advance onto similar levels of other countries. In the next few minutes, I will explain the significance of the Vietnamese culture, its school system, their way of transportation, and their agricultural style. First, the teaching experience in Vietnam is obviously different from the one in America. The Vietnamese school system makes it very important that the kids learn respect, and it's etched into like their brains as they're a kid that if they're well behaved, they will grow up to be good adults. Zhang Huizwan, an author from Nong Lam University in Vietnam, says that moral education is more common in Vietnam than it is in the US. Moral education is basically the practicing of ethical behaviors. As for most small countries, Vietnam has its limitations. The availability and use of technology isn't obviously not on the same level as the United States. The United States has much more technology available, and it's the same for the extracurriculars and sports opportunities. They're nowhere on the same level as the United States. Students over there are very pressured to focus on academics because it reflects on their family. Having a good student in your family means that your family is doing well. Vietnamese students do have one advantage over American students, and that advantage is that almost every Vietnamese student can walk to classes. Compared to Texas, Vietnam is only about half the size of Texas, yet it has 100 million people, so about a third of the entire population of the United States. This means that there's obviously going to be different ways of transportation, and over there, transportation is usually free or cheap and very easy. Walking obviously is free, and you can see many young students walk all the time. When I was about 8 years old, I went to Vietnam to visit my cousins, and I remember that they would take me everywhere, and we were only around 8 to 10. We didn't like tell our parents at all, and it may seem as if we were disobeying our parents by not telling them, but it's actually quite common to see so many little kids like just on the streets by themselves with no parents, even kids that are like 3, 4, or 5 years old. Another difference between the two countries in transportation is that Vietnam is way too small to support cars everywhere. This means that their main vehicle is motorcycles. Roads, however, are still about the same size. The only difference is that there are no lanes in Vietnam. So you can have maybe 7 or 8 people next to you on motorcycles. And although it might be a good way to use their small space, it definitely causes a lot of car accidents. And Muhammad Aziza Roman, an intern for the Center of Southeast Asian Social Studies, calculated that 14,000 deaths happen per year in Vietnam due to car crashes. This makes the number 1 cause of death in Vietnam car crashes. Over 50% of Vietnamese students or Vietnamese people have transportation jobs. This means that their job is to take goods or supplies from farms and then ship it to markets. This leads me to the topic about Vietnamese agriculture and food. Obviously, the Vietnamese land is very small, but they're very good at dividing their land into farming areas and living areas. 95% of arable land is used to grow rice, which is why rice is the staple, in their diet. This also makes Vietnam the 2nd largest rice exporter in the entire world. The U.S. Department Department of Agriculture says that corn is the most common crop in the US because it's used to make feed for animals, like chickens and cows. So basically, meat is a staple in the American diet, right? Meaning that they have to use lots of corn to make, or to feed these animals to make the staple. Whereas Vietnam, we just get our staple immediately, like from the crop. Another difference in food is that each country has different sweets. In America, there's a larger variety of snacks and sweets, but they use more harmful ingredients, such as dyes and artificial flavorings. In Vietnam, however, we have a smaller variety, but we use cleaner ingredients and more simple ingredients, such as rice flour, milk, and fruit. And I actually have some candy for the class later, if you guys want to try. In conclusion, we see how the small country of Vietnam operates in comparison to the United States. We have learned how cultural values of Vietnam include the importance of community, respect, and hard work. So, next time you think about Vietnam, perhaps you'll think about it in a more positive way. Thank you.